Hello everyone and welcome back to another Guild Wars 2 video. Today we're going to be doing some PvP and I had a little bit of a hankering for some Dragonhunter. And recently there were a couple Dragonhunter changes, so I wanted to just test how Dragonhunter was in the current state of the game. So let's just jump into some PvP and I'll explain all my amulet and gear choices and trait choices along the way. So time for some PvP. So welcome to the gameplay section. Now I'm starting this gameplay portion somewhat in the middle of the match. This was the very first match I played with this build and I was a little rusty and I was kind of just fumbling. But this portion of the match, I started to gain my footing, I started to get more used to the skills, and I started to remember how to actually play Guardian, and more specifically, Dragonhunter. So I'm going to first go over my specialization and trait choices real quick. So I'm taking Valor, Virtues, and Dragonhunter. For Valor, I'm taking middle, 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 Virtues, middle, top, bottom, and Dragonhunter, of course, top, top, bottom. And for my weapons, rune, and amulet, I'm taking the longbow, the greatsword, the rune of strength, and the paladin's amulet. This build is targeted more so towards power and keeping at ranged. So I wanted to have a little bit of defense with paladin, but also keep my power up with superior rune of strength. Now, you might have seen at the beginning of this fight, I used my longbow 5 to immobilize them and keep them in the ward. And then once I was done with that, I kind of kited around, used a couple of my longbow abilities, and then switched to greatsword to get into some melee action. Here, it was pretty simple. I kind of just wanted to show the use of the 5th skill for longbow and how you can immobilize people and knock them off their footing. Also, it was quite nice that I didn't have to be in direct line of sight. I was a little bit below on the staircase to have a little bit more defense and maybe make it a little bit more difficult for them to target me. Now, while we're in this transition period, I think this is opportune moment to discuss what changed with Dragonhunter. Dragonhunter hasn't received too many changes recently, but they did have a buff to Big Game Hunter, which is the Grandmaster trait for Dragonhunter, the very bottom one that I'm taking. It now deals 20% increased damage while an enemy is attached to your Spear of Justice. So this build is also prioritizing latching on to people with Spear of Justice. And additionally, Symbol of Energy, the 4th skill for the longbow, its aftercast was reduced by 0.25 seconds, which isn't a lot, but it's helpful to keep the overall pace of longbow a little bit faster. I'd like to briefly mention the utility skills that I'm taking. I am taking the Trap Heal because of the blindness, it helps. I'm taking Test of Faith for an AoE damage zone if they cross it, and Light's Judgment, which will reveal any hidden allies, especially thieves. They can be difficult. So here I used Spear of Justice, and in this situation I wanted to pull the warrior. I didn't want him to go and res his allies. Always remember that you do have a nice pull with Dragonhunter. Sometimes I find myself thinking about if I should use the pull, or just keep it on them for increased damage. Here I tried to finish him off, but I couldn't. And this was a little fight that I thought I'd just leave in, because he does do a lot of damage, and this kind of just shows my kiting. And with the greatsword, its 4th symbol, I believe it's called Symbol of Punishment, the retaliation does wonders. Thankfully right there, his warrior downed skill that allows him to get up expired and he died. As a blanket statement for this build that I'm going for, it does rely more on range. And here, there was this firebrand that I wanted to just keep away. Sadly, the pull didn't do as much as I would have liked to. They still managed to get away. Here, I'm using my Hunter's Ward, the longbow 5th skill, to lock them down in place, but I ended up moving away. Nice interrupt there, and going off and doing some more AoE damage with the symbol. I realized the down player is still down, so I decided just to go back and give him a little bit of a helping hand. But to finish what I was saying, this is relying more on range. And I know in PvP you might have the urge to get in there fast and do a lot of damage, but you now can do pretty decent damage with the new update to Big Game Hunter if your Spear of Justice is attached to an enemy. Because then you can just start true shotting them and auto-attacking them, and you can whittle them down a decent amount. Next up, I wanted to share a little bit of a Stronghold game that I played today, and I had a lot of fun. So this teammate and I are retreating back to our base to defend it because we realize that there's a bomber and there are 2 enemy players already pushing into our final gate. So I wanted to primarily focus down the bomber so that the door wouldn't break down. Pretty logical. And then I turned my attention to this thief and the mesmer. I used my Greatsword 5 to pull them in. Thankfully it hit him, and then I started dealing some more damage to the mesmer. Here I do manage to just straight up res my ally. I am inflicted with many conditions, but I have Contemplation of Purity, which is one of my meditation skills, and additionally I have Renewed Focus to recharge my virtues. I think that's pretty simple. But for this portion of gameplay, I wanted to show a little bit more of greatsword gameplay, if there is any melee situations that you'd like to get into. Thankfully, we kill them, and we're moving on to the next fight scene. This game, I do say I was playing a bit more defensively, but I came over here just to kill the archers, but then all of a sudden there was a ranger, and I was like, oh, you gotta die. So I started off with my hunter's ward. He didn't move out of it, and he just stood there. And so I decided to go in and lay down my traps. I used Renewed Focus, which was a really bad use of Renewed Focus. I want to leave this in just to show you like what not to do. He tried to use his healing spring, didn't work out, and I managed to get the stomp. So this ranger was down. So word to the wise, if you're fighting a Dragonhunter and you see like those blue arrows falling from the sky, it's probably best to move out of the way and just not sit there. And then here's just me killing some bombers, so we'll move on to the next footage. This section of footage, I wanted to show what it was like when I'm under a heavy stress situation. The mesmer comes back, specifically a Mirage, and Mirages deal a lot of condition damage, and they have a lot of evades. So for this, I wanted to play extremely careful. Here, my passive Sanctuary pops, which is always nice, and my heal was off cooldown, so I decided to go forward a little bit and let them trigger it. I use my Wings of Resolve to kite away. Typically, I forget about the power of kiting, but because I've adopted this ranged playstyle, I've learned to love it even more. So, for those of you, be sure to kite. And there, I just used my Shield of Courage to block some projectiles, make sure I wasn't dying. Thankfully, I get to use my heal skill once again, and with the trait, reducing trap cooldowns, I get to use more often. Once again, Wings of Resolve just to get away. And then at this point, the enemy team's kind of at peace with them losing. So we managed to pretty much win this. So I think they move away. However, something happens over at the enemy team and they don't get to finish them off. So now I panic even a little bit more and I'm stuck with the mesmer, and I think the ranger's still here. I am using the terrain to my advantage. I get to portal out and go back to safety. Thankfully, some allies come back and I feel a little bit more comfortable staying here and dealing some damage at range. This is when I really take care of my position. I move forward and lay some traps just to have like a line of death or afflictions that enemy players had to deal with. Thankfully, we managed to get them all wrapped up. I don't think that was personally my responsibility. It was definitely strength in numbers. PvP is a team game, so if you have friends, utilize them and give them credit. So thank you so much, teammates, for helping. And then we're just dealing some more damage with this thief. Get a nice interrupt there, making sure he's not getting too slippery, make sure he doesn't get away. And then this Revenant. I have a very easy time bursting on this Revenant. I'm blinding him with my Greatsword 3, I'm pulling him to interrupt him, and just messing with him mentally. Or at least I hope so. And then I just wanted to add in this footage of my team killing the enemy team's legendary champion person. I had a lot of fun with this game, and I've been having a lot of fun with this build. I like to traditionally say that Guild Wars 2 Path of Fire is currently 50% off. So share this video if you'd like to get your friends in, and check the description for more instructions. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye! Mwah! Down below, I have links to all things Guild Wars 2 for free-to-play players and expansion players alike. So if you or a loved one are interested in playing Guild Wars 2, check the links down below and begin your adventure in Tyria today. See you in game!